The following program is rated GE. It is suitable for general family viewing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to an all-new episode of Tech 47, where keeping up with tech is made simple. I am David Ochola, and in today's episode, we'll talk about how startups can get access to funds and get started. If you have an idea or something like that you want to get funded and get started and make a business out of it, that is exactly what we talk about right here at Adanian Labs. Be sure to stick around for today's episode. With me today we have Mr. John. Welcome to my show, or to the show rather. And I'd like you to just kick us off and tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone, my name is John Kumar. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an African, and I like startups.
Speaking of startups, tell us what you do at Adanian Labs and what Adanian Labs does.
So Adanian Labs is a venture studio.
Okay.
Built with the pieces around how do we guarantee that we would have a lot more African-led founders in the startup world across the continent. And also, how do we create a borderless Africa for African startups to be able to transfer their business practice, their knowledge, and also scale their market, but at the same time de-risk the economy for venture capital to invest in startup, because we do all the hard work. We find founders, we put the team together, we make sure they're resilient, and even when no funding comes, we still work with them to try to just build a sustainable business. And at the same time, look at the resource skill they need. How do we build capacity as a business to help startups, find the right capacity in their businesses? Because for me, I've been an entrepreneur twice. I've worked in corporate world. I've funded companies, I failed in companies, so it's not very new, but also passing on that skill or creating the infrastructure required for them to use that skill to accentuate their business and have a higher possibility for success.
I wanted to follow that up with, so what makes Adanian Labs different from a number of labs that are out there? Because there's many people who bridge the gap between people who are willing to invest and startups.
Okay.
Yeah.
So remove the word lab. It's called Adanian.
Yes.
Adanian is a venture studio. And what's the meaning of venture studios? Venture studios are in the US or Europe, they're not too new concept, but in Africa, in emerging markets, they're quite new concept. The difference in venture studios is that you actually sometimes create opportunities and build founders around the opportunities. And in the same vein, you also develop talent yourself. And when you develop the talent, you match it to the opportunity as well. And you de-risk the model for the big venture capital to then look at the venture studio and say, well, I will invest in the venture studio because it'll give me visibility of all the startups that are already growing within that ecosystem. So in that vein as well, venture studios also build companies themselves within the studio until the company is strong enough to run or to live. So that is the difference between venture studios and just incubators or accelerators, because in a venture studio, you're invested, not just financial wise, you're invested in every possible way to allow the startup or the business opportunity that you're building to grow. So by Adanian Lab, we have a mesh network of a venture studio idea, so where we build startups ourselves, where we find problems, we build solutions around them, we build teams around them, and we build a business. And we also then take in startups as well with great ideas, and we use the same infrastructure to help them grow their business. Now, what also makes us different, apart from being a venture studio, which there's not a lot of in the continent, there's a lot of incubators and a lot of accelerators, and we're not an incubator and accelerator. But what makes difference is we're creating a borderless Africa. And why that is so important is the fact that think about scaling your business from Kenya to Tanzania. What that takes the startup that doesn't even have a lot of money. Then I also work with big companies who have money, who are still struggling. with scaling those businesses. So building that infrastructure across Africa means we also have a business model that allows us to take startups, retro-engineer their business, and launch them in different markets. So either they are our startups or the ones that we work in the ecosystem. So we become an ecosystem provider of access to new markets. Then at the same time, we build capacity. So we train people and we turn that into an outsourcing model. You're already seeing the talent war in Kenya, for example, where startups can't compete. It's impossible. I mean, any good talent is going to go to, and this is the downside of any smart economy that is growing a super fast phase, but without a funnel approach to how you create talent. And I've seen this happen in Europe. So if you don't create that funnel of talent for the startup ecosystem, you will stifle the growth of startups. No matter how great their ideas are, no matter if they don't have the talent. So we're investing also in training talent. So we can funnel it with the startup before the talent becomes too expensive. The startup's been able to use it to actually grow their business, and they might actually end up growing with them. So it's great that the Googles and everybody's coming, but the backbone of this economy rests in investing in talent to bridge that gap. So that's why we are different as Adanian Labs.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I can see the fire burning in you. I am clearly awe-inspired by the vision, and I really hope it goes really well.
Hello, I'm Jason Ketman. I'm an investor in Kenya here, focused mostly on business-to-business technologies, hoping to make the continent a better place.
Speaking of the continent, I'd like to know what are some of the companies that you worked with so far, or startups that you worked with in regards to solving problems,
Sure. So the first partnership that I established out here was with Adanian Labs, and so they've been gracious enough to host me here. Within that portfolio, organizations that I co-invested in are one that I believe John will reference in the program as well, speaking about making pharmaceuticals more accessible as well. Interestingly, when we did a case study on that particular segment, what we found with the impact of the distributor was that they were able to reduce their administrative staff by about half. And by that I mean all facets, not just traditional admin, but also outreach and things of that sort. And shockingly, their sales tripled. And so in the segment I think that you'll hear from that pharmaceutical company, there's also another company focused on helping people get access to construction supplies. I lived out in Mombasa for a while, and it took me 3 days to find a hammer. And this company solves that problem immediately, and not just for hammers, but also for concrete foundations and steel, and for windows and countertops and flooring, anything that would be related to a construction project. They solve that problem. Interestingly, I was shocked to find out, I came from Oracle as one of my last companies as a VP of sales and marketing over there, and I was shocked that there didn't really seem to be any African-focused financial platforms, and that blows me away because regulation is different everywhere, and so to have a local lens on those types of things as you're building a product specific to the people here just seemed like a no-brainer. I was shocked that it didn't exist anymore, or didn't exist yet, and yet that's another company that the lab came across, and I was fortunate enough to be able to co-invest with. And then lastly, and more timely to now, but I think something that will last beyond the pandemic as well, is a company that does contactless restaurant experiences. And so I know that that's something that people are growingly concerned about in the COVID era. But beyond that, I think that COVID has made us more present about germs and being present about being cleanly and things like that. And so to be able to have the entire experience from ordering through the menu to requesting help from the server to paying, all being done contactlessly is again another great thing that I think would be good for everybody.
I'm sure in the companies that you've invested in so far, there's that underlying factor. There's that thing that made you think this is the one I want to invest in, Essentially what I'm asking you is, what's that one thing that you're looking for when you look at a company or when you look at startups as an investor? What's that thing that makes you think, this one is?
So it's two things. The first of which is, are they solving a problem that needs to be solved? I was running my own accelerator in the US about 10 years ago, And through some of the successes with that accelerator, MIT invited me to their grad school to work with their incubators as well to try and figure out, the most effective ways to go to market for startups and things like that. I was shocked that oftentimes people will have ideas for companies that don't actually solve a problem. And I think that can be validated rather quickly, right? Go to who your target customers would be and ask them, what's this worth to you? Why would this have an impact to you? What would be that impact? Are you able to quantify it? And so you could do a quick, easy test on that to making sure that the problem is something that needs to be solved. But beyond that, I also look at the founding team. And so I think one of my first hiring managers that hired me in my early days of working for companies, and they said their hiring criteria is head, heart, and desire. If they have those three, nothing else is needed. And so I look for that as well within the founding teams to ensure that they possess all three. And I feel very fortunate that I think that all of the companies that I've been working with around here do possess all of that in spades.
So beyond this point of someone being in need of an investor or a startup being in need of an investor, what makes a company successful beyond that? Okay, you're on board. What then makes me more successful, or scalability and such things?
Yeah, I think that it's being resourceful. Because typically if a startup's going to do something great, they're going to be doing something new. And when you're doing something new and you're blazing that trail, there's a lot of uncertainty about what that actually looks like. And so many of these companies, as we look at what they're doing, we've made a lot of adjustments throughout the process to say, boy, I didn't realize that this actually could be a focal area for us. Or, boy, we thought that this was going to be, our business model or what we're going to focus on. And as it turns out, these other things that we're doing are actually more valuable. And so I think that there's a constant need to be assessing the viability and the efficacy of what you're doing. And even say once you have your first customer, your first 100 customers, it's the same analysis to say, okay, we've done a good job, we've garnered these customers, and so now how do we look at it? How do we do this more efficiently? And so I think that ties back to the resourcefulness and the innovation. So never stop thinking about how you can be better and how you can be doing more, and never be fixated that anything has to happen any one certain way, because anything can always change. And as long as you're dynamic and nimble and always thinking about the solution and the goal that you have in mind, I think that there'll be a lot of failures and a lot of stumbling blocks and things like that. But as long as you remain resilient, I don't think that there's any path other than success with that vigilance.
One of the partnerships that you talked about when you were beginning was the partnership with Adanian Labs, yeah? How important or critical is it for, say, me as someone who's starting a company, or me as a tech startup, for example, how important is it for me to partner with, say, Adanian Labs or any other studio, yeah, that helps me get investors, yeah, both from your perspective as an investor and from the startup, yeah.
Sure. Well, and any time I think about any question, I always try to put myself in someone else's shoes, which gives them perspective. So I think I'll probably answer from that lens. And what I would say is that if you are a successful entrepreneur, then you probably have your own resources and networks and things like that. So you're probably in a pretty good place. But I think that broadly, most people are thinking about, they have this great idea and they want to start a business, they want to build a business around it. And that's wonderful and it's amazing. And I think that it's the lifeblood of what keeps many of us going and really gets very exciting. But so within that, if it's your first time doing this, there's just a lot of things that you don't know, and there's a lot of things that you need to figure out on your own and think about. And I remember when I was running my first company, bringing on my first hire was such an arduous thing, because that money was coming out of my pocket, and I knew it, right? And I knew that I didn't have this money if I had to hire somebody, but I also knew I needed the help. And that decision, believe it or not, was very difficult for me, and something that I really struggled with personally. But now having brought to market hundreds of companies, those types of decisions don't spend much time, right? Thinking about business models while it's always being refined, I don't spend that much time thinking about it. And so tying back to your question about the value of somebody considering joining a lab like this, it's providing that expertise and guidance that, hey, I've been there, I've thought through this, I've done this is what I did. Obviously it's your company, it's your choice to figure out exactly what you want to do, how you want to do it, but this is what I would recommend, or these are the different decision paths. Here are the pros and cons of each path you could potentially go down. But, again, my advice would be to do this. And I think that as you're getting some of your initial formulation of opinions, I think that it's really important to get lots of opinions because, I could think very highly of myself and that'd be great for me, right? But I'm not the right person for everybody, right? And so there's always different perspectives and there's always different people that you get along with differently and have different synergies with. And so I think that the value of the lab as a whole is that, they bring in resources such as me that can help with co-investment, but also business advisory. But even if I'm not somebody's cup of tea or I don't add value to them or whatever it may be, I'm not the right fit for them, there's also all of the other members within the lab that can provide insights to say, okay, well, when I was running my business, in the exact same conversations that I was talking about, right? But to get multiple lenses on that, I think gives you a really good aggregation. So you can think about, all right, these are what I heard. So if there's a lot of consistency and then one outlier, probably pretty likely you can get rid of the outlier, right? And if there are things that make a lot of sense to you and other things that don't, then you have lots of resources to get clarification, to get additional insight, or it also gives you an ability to get validation on the ideas that you had. If somebody says, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, great, you don't need to think about it anymore because another thing that I really struggled with when I was running my businesses is the concept of decision fatigue. Mm-hmm. And what that says is that you have the ability to make a certain amount of decisions in any particular day, and after that set amount of finite decisions, the quality of the decisions goes down. And I remember when I was running one of my businesses, I was really struggling with some things, and so I sat down with some people that I respect and think highly of and asked them, their opinions, and the answers were really easy and really obvious, and I just couldn't believe that I was not seeing the really obvious answers in front of me. But so with decision fatigue being a real thing, if you have people that can either validate that your ideas are good or provide insights on things that you don't have to spend as much time on, it can alleviate that burden of the decision fatigue and really make you more efficient on thinking about the other critical decisions that need to be made.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's great spending time with you.
Really appreciate it.
I'm Dennis Njuguna, founder and CEO of Jungo Farm. So Jungo Farm is a pharmaceutical and healthcare platform for buyers and sellers of pharma and healthcare products. We basically link the supply chain in terms of pharmaceuticals for them to be able to buy and sell easily to and from each other. Yeah.
I'd ask you this in another way, but let me just ask you, what makes yours different from the ones that are there in the market today?
True. Yeah. So how ours is different is we chose not to segment the whole industry. Okay. By that I mean we chose not to be a retailer, we chose not to be a wholesaler, but we chose to just link the whole industry by just providing a software and let them trade as is. We're basically making their work easier to make sure that the end consumer gets medicine easily. Yeah.
So what has the experience been so far working with a venture studio as opposed to before when you were trying to get an investor on your own?
So having a venture studio, especially Adanian on your back, it gives you opens a lot of doors, not gives you people, it just opens a lot of doors.
Opens or kicks down? Okay.
I'd say opens because you have to kick down, because you can get in front of Uhuru, but if you're there telling him, hi, good work, he's like, okay, cool. But if you go and tell him, hi, I'm so and so and so, I can do this, different story. So that's how we got into the lab, managed to talk to Jason Ketman. He loved our startup, personally invested in it, and he's been really helping us define the business as it is and how we make money from it as well.
So give me your experience from, say, when you started up to where you're at now. What has the experience been like?
So it's basically been a 0 to 1. So when we started, it was the typical one. You have an idea, you think it's the coolest, you find other products. Obviously now you have to go back to the drawing board, find a niche. So in finding a niche, obviously that's the most difficult part, because before you actually get there, You have to dig much deeper than you thought you would. So with all of that, it's trying to come up with a whole solution to the problem and a good solution that the market will take up. And then you push it towards to now getting a few people that can complement you. I'm on the business side. I need someone who's really good with software. Got a CTO, I need someone who's really good when it comes to the product, someone who can actually explain the product to a few guys and the consumers. Got myself a product owner. With that team established, you go to pitch to a startup. You go to pitch to a venture capital, to an incubator hub, like Adanian. So once you're in Adanian now, things change to a whole other level. It's here's your business, this is what you want to do, how can you take it to the next level? Now in that, the whole language changes. You get funding, you're told, okay, you need to hit your key performance indicators, you need to get X clients, you need to get X revenue. Now it's actually getting value for the business. It's no longer defining or looking to where to best structure the business. It's now pushing towards market, it's pushing towards you getting users, you getting paid users, with the end-term goal of actually providing value to the end consumer.
If you were to give a word of advice to someone who's probably thinking about getting into this space, where they have a tech startup or something like that and they need an investor, if you were to give them a word of advice, what would that be? I'm sure there's a lot you have in mind, yeah?
There's a lot, but the simplest way to put it, as Nike always says, just do it. Just do it, because if you don't, you'll probably... It's easier to try something and fail or try something and pivot, but it's much harder when it comes to regret. So just do it. If you're thinking of doing this, nothing stops you from doing it. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. Thank you for the interview.
Karibu.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Michael Mohato and I'm the founder and CEO of M-Jenzi.com.
What problem does M-Jenzi solve?
M-Jenzi comes and brings together an ecosystem whereby suppliers and vendors of products to do with construction materials and home improvement products come together, showcase their products so that the people who need them can be able to see them online and buy them online too.
What has the experience been so far working with the venture studios here at Adanian Labs?
Being that M-Jenzi has been bootstrapped for like about over a year and about 3 months, joining Adanian Labs has, we can say, has been a very good experience because we have moved in leaps and bounds from where we were before we joined to where we are right now. For one, we've managed to be at the Home Expo that just concluded at the KICC. We managed to get about 240 leads business, which is way above what we were expecting. Managed to get about 80 engagements, and up to date we have now 45 registered vendors. That's not the end of it. We were able to showcase ourselves at a stand. And that was because of the benefits we have gained from Adanian Labs. We've also been able to showcase M-Jenzi on different other platforms. We've been able to engage developers who have taken M-Jenzi now to a higher level. We have better user interface. We are able to be seen more. The visibility and the awareness and the brand awareness of M-Jenzi is much higher than when it was when we were bootstrapping. So all thanks to the labs, because even where we're heading is now easily visible.
Speaking of where you're heading, 5-10 years from now, where do you see your business?
In the 5 years term limit, we're looking at being a global product brand, just like Alibaba and the rest, because we're looking at shelter, which is a basic need. Therefore, our go-to market is everybody.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So my name is Matt Magia. I'm the founder of Joby. I'm an 18-year-old tech startup founder and Adanian Labs. So my startup is called Joby. It's a service marketplace and financial services platform. So what we do, we link service providers and service seekers, cleaners, photographers, beauticians, repairmen, all these people, we link them with demand on our platform. And also we leverage the data from the services they're doing on Joby to give them access to capital. Your average day cleaner, your repairman, he has no access to any bank. He's not on anybody's payroll. So what Joby does, from the services he's doing on Joby, we're able to tell this guy makes this amount of money, be able to pay this amount of capital given to him. So That's what Joby does ideally. We're linking the 85% from the informal sector with demand, and also the 65% that is unbanked. We're also giving them access to financial services.
That's quite something. You've been working with Adanian Labs for a minute, I know. How has that experience been for you?
Adanian Labs has been great. I've been here for the past 2 months. It's been a great experience. I'd like to thank the Adanian Labs. I'd also like to thank John Kamara, the CEO. He's really given us, me and the other founders, he's really given us a lot of opportunities, he's really given us that push. Before this, Joby we were bootstrapping. I'd built up a simple website, and guys were requesting services from dialing. But now, after being here, now we're building an online platform. We plan to go to market in the next 2 months. So I'd really like to thank them for what they've done.
So give or take 5-10 years from now, where do you think your business will be? Or where would you like to see your business?
What I'd like to see with Joby 10 years down the line is I'd go Upper India and then ask someone, do you know Joby? Then they tell me, Joby does this and that. That's what I'd like to see 10 years down the line. And that's what we're working towards.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of another episode of Tech 47. If you enjoyed it, be sure to tune in next week, same time, same place, right here on TV 47. And remember, if you don't see it right here on Tech 47, then it technically did not happen.